Hi everybody, I want to do something a bit unusual. I'm gonna talk about some paintings, but I promise it's not gonna be boring. It might be a bit philosophical though. Maybe you remember that last time I talked about the movie Trance. It's a very interesting movie because there are many different interpretations, and depending on what perspective you view the movie from, the meaning of the movie changes. And of course, that was also a movie where paintings play an important role, and it's the same with many paintings. You know, depending on the perspective you view them, the meaning changes. But I'm gonna talk about that again in a few seconds. So there were two paintings in particular that were featured prominently in that movie. One was the Dancing Witches, or whatever it's called, which is one of the first expressionistic paintings, basically. And it plays a very important role in the movie because it actually helps you understand the movie. Because if you're able to understand the meaning of the painting, or one of its meanings, it also helps you to understand one of the meanings of the movie. But I'm not going to talk about that because I already talked about the movie. I just want to talk about some paintings now. Another painting that is featured prominently in the movie is Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Of course, one thing that's interesting about this painting is that it was actually stolen in real life, because the movie is about that other painting getting stolen. But that painting was stolen in real life, and it is still missing. It's still with some criminal. But there is another reason why that painting is featured in this movie. Again, this has to do with the meaning of the painting, or one of its meanings. And this is also explained in the movie. Actually, Rembrandt himself has hidden himself in the painting. But he has hidden himself in plain view because he's the guy right in the middle looking straight at the audience. So because he has hidden himself in plain sight, many people don't realize that. And that actually also helps you understand the movie. But as I said, I don't want to talk about the movie too much. Of course, after I watched that movie, I talked with some friends about the different meanings of the movie, and the role that the paintings play, and various paintings play in the movie. There was someone who showed me another painting that is not featured in the movie, which is All Is Vain, which is also an interesting painting. But I thought, wait a minute, I know this painting from somewhere. Well, I didn't know that painting, but there is a very similar painting that is much older. Was painted a couple of hundred years earlier, and that is The Ambassadors by Hans Hohlbein. And I think even though that painting is not featured in the movie, I think it is actually interesting to talk about it in connection with the movie, because as I said, depending on the perspective, the meaning of the movie changes. And it's the same with this painting. Depending on the perspective, the meaning of the painting changes, because on the surface what we see are those two ambassadors. It's actually a portrait of those two ambassadors. They were, of course, real life people, living back in the day. As you can see, they were very powerful, very influential, and very rich. and you can see that symbolized in the painting. You can right away see those are influential, important people with a lot of power and a lot of money. But there is something else in the painting, and a lot of people can't make out what it is. And what you have to do is actually, of course, nowadays we can do it with computers. Back in the day, there were no computers. You can do it with Photoshop. But back in the day, what you had to do is view the painting from a certain angle. Just right of the painting, from the right side of the painting, and a little below the painting, from a certain angle, and then you would be able to see what has been distorted, and you can then see it clearly and make out the skull. Then you will be able to see it clearly. But if you view it from that perspective, everything else in the painting suddenly starts to look distorted. So it's a very philosophical painting, more or less, because most people, they live their lives, pursuing money and fame and power, and being concerned about their careers, and they think that those things are real and tangible and important, and but seen from another perspective, seen from a larger perspective, a human life is not actually very long. If you look at how old the Earth or the universe is, a human life amounts to almost nothing. It's gone. It's over very fast. And all those things that you have pursued all your life, they lose all their meaning. Most people, they don't want to think about what happens after death, or they don't want to think about the afterlife. They think that those things are not important, that those things are not tangible. They think that money and their careers and stuff, they think that is important, that is tangible. But depending on the perspective you view it from, it might turn out that the things that you have considered real and concrete, that they might not be as tangible as you have imagined. And those things that you regarded as intangible, they might turn out to be much more permanent and real than the things we have regarded as permanent and real. So, depending on the perspective you view things from, the meaning changes entirely. So that's why I think that is a very interesting painting, and of course it's also a very interesting movie. I talked about the movie already, because it's the same with the movie. Depending on your perspective, the meaning changes.